Today we're looking at the attributes of functions. We are going to focus in on linear functions today, but we will be looking at attributes of different functions throughout the year. So, looking at domain and range, we want to graph and then find the domain and range. So let's first off look at graphing it. So if I have the function f of x equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. We have different things that are pulled out in this. What's added or subtracted without the variable is your y-intercept. And so we'll come over here and we'll plot a positive 2 y-intercept. The other thing we have is we are given the slope, that negative 2/3. And when it's negative, you're going to fall, and whatever the numerator is, and you'll go right from the previous point, the denominator. Or you'll rise and go left when it's negative. When it's positive, you'll do the opposite. And so let's go ahead and plot some points here. So it says I need to fall 2, go right 3. And so that means that one of my points is over here at 3, 0. But if I need to go backwards, because I need to have a point to the left, I need to rise my 2 and go right, or go left the 3. And so now I'm going to go ahead and draw in my line. When you're drawing lines in my class, I want you to have arrows at both ends. I recommend having 3 points so you know exactly that you've gone through with a straight line, and have the lines draw to the edge of the graph. Use a ruler or a straight edge to help you accomplish that. So looking at the two things, we have domain that it wants us to find, and it also wants us to find range. So domain are my x values. And so when I'm looking for my x values, I'm eventually going to, if I keep extending this graph on, it will go all the way to the left. There's nothing stopping it going left, and there's nothing stopping it going right. So if I'm doing this in interval notation, that's negative infinity to positive infinity. Now let's think about range. There's nothing stopping it going down, and there's nothing stopping it going up. So again, my low point, if I'm looking at my y values, my low point is negative infinity, my high point is positive infinity. So remember on domain, it's left, how far left you are, comma, how far right. And range is how far down, comma, how far up. So our domain and range, and then our graph. Let's go on to the next one. We're going to find the domain and range of the function, just like we did the last one, and then give the range with a restricted domain. And what that means is somewhere it's given us a restriction. And so we got to look for the restriction. This right here is our restriction. This is the lowest, or excuse me, the farthest left on the x we can be, and the farthest right. These mean we can actually be at those points. And that's only going to apply when it's asking us for the restriction. So when it's with the restricted domain, we'll use that, what I highlighted in yellow. To just find it for the function, we'll start there. So we're just looking for the functions, domain and range. this is going to be a linear equation. It's got a negative slope, so that means I'm falling as I'm going to the right. So it means my graph is going to look something like this. Is there any stop or start points for my x values? No. So we have from negative infinity to positive infinity. We're going to look at the function's range. Is there any stop and start points going up and down? No. So it's negative infinity to positive infinity. So for the function itself, that answers that first question. Now, let's look at it when it is restricted. And the domain is restricted. That means my domain is locked down to a certain area that can only be. So in this case, it was -3 to +10. So this is my farthest left. This is an x value for my farthest left. This is another x value for my farthest right. What we're going to do is we are going to evaluate and find two different things. We are going to find what is f of -3, and then we're also going to find what is f of 10. So we're looking at plugging in both of those. And what that means is I am going to plug in the -3 into my function. And so we have our function of f of x is equal to -2x plus 7. So if I have f of -3, that -3 replaces that x, so -2 times -3 plus 7. And then we just do order of operations. So multiplication comes first. -2 times -3 is a +6 plus 7, and that gives me a 13. And we're asked to find the range given that restricted domain. So range is looking for y values. When we're plugging it in, this will give us the y value when x is equal to -3. So that's what this is saying. The y value is 13 when x is equal to -3. I want y'all to find f of 10. So you should have come up with -13. This is the y value when x is equal to +10. And so if I'm to give my domain, we have a line. So between those 2 points, I'm just kind of looking up here, we have a straight line. There's nothing curving in between it. So when we're listing our restricted range, one of those is my highest value and one of them is our lowest value. And so my lowest value, because when we do range, remember we go low, comma, high. My lowest value was -13. Comma, my highest value was +13. Now, I got to figure out what goes around it. Am I going to have brackets like this, or am I going to have parentheses like we had up here? Well, the question is, if I plug in -3, will I exactly be at one of those locations? And the answer is yeah. So I need to have a bracket for that side. If I plug in a 10, will I be at -13? Yes. So if your restriction for your domain has square brackets, your restricted range will also have those square brackets. So that is the restricted range based upon this restriction.